How does gaming get away from the idea that the rich and powerful are somehow genetically superior heroes destined to rule the rest of us?
I think I'd have to question the premise. The idea that in gaming, this is a thing that happens a lot. You do see it in broader fiction, and weirdly, given the political climate that we are entangled in, it seems to be more popular or more overt in non-gaming fiction, even than it used to be. But we'll come back around to that, I guess. There are some tabletop games in which bloodline, heritage, chosen one specialness, and so on come to the fore. Birthright is an example for D&D. It's an old setting for those who don't know about it, and we probably won't ever see Birthright again for similar reasons why we won't see a new Dark Sun. That political climate we were talking about. You see some shades of that, I guess, in some of the new settings, Eberron and the clan marks and things that people have. But generally, in gaming, for a character or an NPC to become powerful, to become high level, they, by the kind of metaphysics of the game world, they have to adventure. So they have to commit deeds of great heroism or great villainy in order to become powerful. So it's not necessarily in something like D&D the divine right of kings so much as heroism, earning someone enough XP to get to high enough level to run a kingdom sort of thing. Plus, I think you also have to consider that in a lot of fantasy worlds in particular, a lot of the ideas that have led to oppression and so on in real life are real. So there is a divine right of kings. Gods are real and they do interfere in the world and so on, right? So it's all very well some king in the real world saying, oh, well, my family was chosen by God to rule this land. That's one thing. And then in a fantasy world, someone saying, my family has been designated by our gods to rule this land, and then the clouds part, a giant face looms down, gives that guy the thumbs up, winks to the clerics, and then disappears, right? That's a whole different thing altogether. Plus, noblesse oblige, being enforced by divine wrath would probably tend to lead to better dictators, kings, and so on than you might otherwise have, assuming the gods are gods of good and law, presumably. Law, maybe not quite so much. You don't see these kind of tropes in science fiction as much, certainly not in science fiction games. Science fantasy like Star Wars, I mean, you see it a bit. Luke comes from a lineage which explains his facility with the Force, but he's still a backwater farm boy and has to be trained and honed, and it's his fundamental goodness more even than the Force that really brings him to the fore. There's the Kulu Kingdom in Peter F. Hamilton's Night's Dawn series, where they have a ruling class that has been genetically designed and trained since birth to be a ruling class. So that's another way around it. It's a kind of genetic benevolent dictatorship enforced by training genetics implants. Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. So there's ways around it, but the trope is a trope for a reason, I think. You can subvert it, but I just don't think you should think about it too hard in gaming. It will just get in the way of the fun to one extent or another, and if you find yourself questioning it in games, I think you need to take a step back and think about, okay, what are the metaphysics of the game world? What does it mean to be the chosen one? Is this a Rey story or is this a Luke story? Do you have to earn it, or is it all handed to you on a silver platter, sort of thing? In fiction, I think a book that handles this whole thing well, along the kind of lines that you were talking about in the question, is Unlondon by China Mayville. Now, he's an overtly socialist author, but I don't think he propagandizes in his work. But in Unlondon, there is a chosen one who fails, and then it is the chosen one's companion that ends up being the one that solves the issue in the fantastical world and all the rest of it. So if you want to see a story where subverting that trope is done well, I would go with Unlondon. But I honestly wouldn't worry about it too much. It turns up in these fantasy ideas and so on for a reason. People dream of getting that sudden revelation, or that that they're special, or winning the lottery, or Harry Potter is another example. He might be special, but he comes from living in a cupboard under the stairs to fulfill his destiny through a lot of training and a lot of friends and everything else. So the trope doesn't have to be bad, and you're possibly overthinking it if it offends your sensibilities too much.